Let's get into. I assume this is new. Were essences in 4? Okay, so this is a new thing to 5, and it's the ability to pull essence out of a demon and apply it to yourself or another demon. And you can apply for other demons, you can give them the skills, and then through some miracles that are obvious ones to get, you will apply it to yourself with the skills or the affinities or resistances and strengths and weaknesses, yada yada. So I adored this, and you basically have to use this to get through the game. Amon, you got any horror stories from trading your essences and upgrading your characters?
No horror stories, mostly positive, but I was always skeptical. When I would go in
Yeah.
and trade my essences or affinities, I'd like, okay, is the next boss. My rule was simple. As long as light and dark are not a weakness, I'm good to go. If any of those two are a weakness, because I have horror stories of getting killed by some random character that was 30 levels below me. I'm like, okay, that's no fun. So that was my only rule of thumb. Do not make yourself weak to any of those two. And that was it.
That's so important to mention too, because that's an upgrade. It used to be that in all of the previous SMT games, if you were weak, light, or dark, it was insta kill.
Mm-hmm.
So like that happened to me through Nocturne at some points, and I don't even think you needed to be weak at times because there was just that chance of insta kill. I don't remember too clearly now, but my was that I was always debating within myself, and I was very conserving with my essences. I had a ton of them even by the end, and I still have a bunch that are just unused. But to me, it was better to have more than not, just in case for some boss battles. And I was always debating, am I going to use this essence for skills, or am I going to use it for resistances? Because a lot of the best ones had the best of both.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think in the end, I tended to defer more towards the resistances. I only ever put them in my Nahobino. I definitely used them. I exploited them to get things like the Great Life Surge, the High Restore, the Null if there was a weakness, either to the weakness or to physical attacks, and also the Pleroma, a High Pleroma on using. And so like that's primarily how I use the essences. When I first got them, I was so confused in the game. I was like, what are these, like Persona tarot cards? And then it, like, once I uncovered the system of the essences, I was more intrigued and more interested. I think like I wouldn't stress it early in the early game, but I think as you make it further in the game, they become a lot more useful. And definitely prioritize your Nahobino with them. And then once you've got a decent supply, you can start messing with your other demons. That's kind of my philosophy. Spencer?
I okay. My final one was actually when I beat the game the first time. My final one was, it did have weaknesses, but I found that the essence you really want, and you mentioned this earlier a little bit, but was if you can completely like reflect or absorb physical, you could get through most of this game. And that's what I did, and it got me through the game. But what I ended up doing, which I think is what you did first, which was smart, and I think you did this too, Amon, was the Metatron guy. You take his essence, where he's not reflecting anything, I don't believe, but he's blocking almost every almost every different spell they could do. I think Dark, he just doesn't have anything to it or something. But I did that, and then I took a skill. The essences at the end of the game are like, there's one skill that you want, and so you just use the essence for it, or you want those affinities. And I would take one of the skills would be repel physical from somebody, I don't remember who, but I took his essence of repel physical and just applied it as one of my slots. So a combination of that can make an unstoppable person, because you could also do that and get something that like repels dark, and now you have a person that literally can't be touched by anything.
Mm.
It's just a turn ender, except for like Almighty, but you know. I think the essences are a smart way to manipulate yourself into feeling like an overpowered god, which SMT is a game
That's the
that
point.
pretty much encourages you to do so. And I think it's fun to play around with it. And I can see why they didn't let you pick your affinities the same way they do skills, because you could very easily make yourself unkillable that way. You really just have to pick the affinity of something that already exists and follow that. So I could see why they wouldn't let you do that, but that would be the last step, which I'm glad they didn't take. I like the essence system, and I'm like you guys. I don't think I really applied it to the demons as often, because it's like I don't want to waste an essence and then just get rid of that demon later anyway. But if I needed to, like if I'm going to a big boss fight and I know it's weak to fire and my big magic user doesn't have a fire move, I'll snag a fire move off somebody else and just toss it on him, just for that reason. But never to make an ultimate demon, unless you're at the very, very end game, in which case it makes sense. But yeah.
We talk about skills.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Favorite skills and also new additions, because there were things I was unfamiliar with. I was unfamiliar with Pierce, like attacks that will pierce a weakness. So my end game guy has a skill that the you know, like dancing like fire kind of like hula hoop guy.
Yeah.
He has a skill called Trisagin or Trisagi on.
Yeah.
That's a fire attack that pierces weakness. So I have a magic build, so I put that on him. And I also have like a bump on fire moves. And so that's a high energy fire attack that pierces. But if I know that an enemy can be attacked by fire, then I have the severe fire attack. I forget what it's called. It's like Agi something. They have a system for like how they name these things. Agi Barion or something. So the piercing skill is definitely one of my favorites. What are some of your guys' favorite skills?
Amon, any come to mind?
Yeah, I enjoyed the piercing as well because it kind of puts a hamper on your. I think it lowers their whatever stat it is that it lowers on the. Or maybe it just goes through regardless of their immunity. I don't remember exactly what the added effect was. I was a strength build, so primarily my skills were all just destroyed. But I also used Almighty a lot too, so I built that up. I didn't care too much about magic, so I basically my rule was pick an affinity that had most resistances. Then for skills, when I was picking skills, I would take block darkness or block fire or whatever. Those what I filled with. Then one or two is what I had the actual skills that I would use for my hero, which were like physical and or almighty, and that was it. Simple but very effective.
Did we have the same exact build? Holy shit. Did you have Wrath Tempest?
I don't remember.
The move that hits random enemies, but like
times or something.
I did not use those moves because I did not like the randomness, because there were a lot of things that deflected and I'd lose turns on that. So anything random, I was not accepting. So no, get that out of here.
Oh my god. Anyway, I'm not even going to hear that. But because you're using it against bosses.
Well, before, yeah, I guess that's true too. But bosses, fair enough. Like I said, Almighty, nothing was blocking Almighty, and I was focusing on that, and that just wrecked everybody's day. Boss, non-boss, they can be resistance to whatever, but I knew, especially when you build your Matsugashi gauge up and you do all critical, and when you do it on Almighty, they were done.
I'll tell you what I think are the two most overpowered. Well, I'll say three most overpowered skills in the game. I would argue the first one is Luster Candy.
Oh yeah.
The second
Love
one
Luster Candy.
is the opposite of Luster Candy. It's Debilitate.
Debilitate, yeah.
And then the third one is a passive. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but Beelzebub gets it. And the other earlier ones get it too, but very rarely. But it increases the length of the status spells that you apply to things.
Boon boost.
Boon boost. And there's a boon boost EX. So it's extra.
4 turns?
4 turns.
Oh, shit.
And Beelzebub has all that. Well, I think I had to give him one of them. It might have been Debilitate or something. But I turn him into my buffer/debuffer. And what it does is it lowers or raises a rank, or all ranks, by 1 for either your opponent or your team. So if you use Luster Candy, it makes your team go up on all stats by 1 rank.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use on your opponents, the Debilitate, it lowers it by 1 rank.
Of all, though, it's like attack, defense, and accuracy, and evasion.
And it's to all enemies and / all party members. So, and other RPGs, I'm usually not a status guy. Like in Pokemon, it's like, use Tail Whip. It's like, fuck no. I'm going to freaking use Tackle. But in this game, you're often faced with bosses that are just more powerful than you are. It's just kind of the state of how the game is played. Your ticket out of that is Luster Candy / Debilitate. Because you suddenly can make them like, God, the scale of it must be 5 levels or something of just like how far down it puts their skills.
Yeah.
And if you can apply it twice, they're freaking useless. And you do it both ways. And there's a boss at the end, and I don't want to, again, VG said I'm allowed to spoil things, so I'm just going to do it. There's a boss called Vishnu.
Yeah, I met him. He kicked my buns, and I ran off like a little girl.
Oh, you have to be like level. The guy that was looking at recommended 96. I beat him at 99. He's very, very hard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which sucks because he gives you 3 essentially rare candies, which were useless to me at that point. But if you fight him, he, even at level 99, he's way, way stronger than you. So you have to apply the debuff to him and all the people he summons, which he summons constantly. And you have to keep those up. Now, the reason that you want the boon boost that Teddy already mentioned is that they increase the duration of those, because they normally only last 2 turns. But the boon boost EX will increase it to 4 turns, and they're very expensive. They're like 150 MP each. So Beelzebub can keep us boosted / the enemy weakened for a very, very long time for a lot cheaper. So huge call out to those skills. I think especially for all the end game bosses that you're going to do, you have to. You don't have to, but you really should be applying Luster Candy at least to your team.
I agree. I only used. I had a demon that was called Norn. It was a special fusion with the 3 of the Moirai sisters. I can't remember the names, but basically like the 3 sisters that like control time in Greek mythology. And I would be able to bump my Nahobino's magic attacks. He has like a build of like 100+ magic. And he would be doing like 2,000 damage with a severe force attack or fire attack, up from like what would be like 500 or 600 or so. And say you're hitting a weakness too, like, I was doing some serious numbers on him. So Luster Candy was a must for me. Use it twice. Use it before you use the critical Magatsuhi skill. And you'd be doing like some serious damage. The only downside to that is if the enemy has D Kaja or D Kunda, and they can just negate whatever it is that you just did to your side or to theirs. It's not a fail-safe, but it's pretty good when it works.
Yeah. Let's talk. I mean, there's a lot of cool skills. Beelzebub, I hate to keep bringing him up, but he's my boy. He's my favorite demon in the game. He has a severe mass, hits all enemies attack of dark that pierces. It's freaking insane. that guy's.
You fight him?
No, I just fused him.
Never fight him, and so you.
I don't think I fought him.
We're gonna come back to that, but
I don't think I ever fought him, but I was pumped to fuse him because, as I mentioned earlier, it was a freaking bitch to get him.
Yeah.
You have to do so many side quests just to be able to fuse him. It's
Have
insane.
him as a fusible for my first playthrough.
Did you finish all the? Did you do side quests?
Not all of them. I guess I did enough though.
There's a chain that you have to do, and if you don't do that chain, you can't get one of the fusibles for him. And I've generally skipped side quests, so I had to go back, and on my last playthrough I got him, just because of what you had to do. Worth it though.